What's going on, everybody? You've got the card board coach here with your boy, Coach Co. And team, today we have a very special guest on the podcast today. We've got Ezra Levine, aka the CEO of Mascot. How you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
I'm happy to have you, especially because you have recently partnered with My Card Post, and as you know, people are tuning into this channel. My Card Post is a sponsor of this channel, and Mark is. I mean, I've definitely spent some good amount of time talking to Mark. Mark's good people, and so if you're good with Mark, then you're good with me for the most part. So happy to get to know you and get to know Mascot, and yeah, man, appreciate you coming.
Yeah, well, we're excited about the arrangement with my card post and Mark. I got to know Mark a little bit. It was, I would say, pre-national, and then we connected in person at the national, and he explained his vision. I explained my vision, and we said, you know what, I think there's a real natural tie in here. So we're excited to formally announce that a couple days ago, and now the process of integrating the platforms really begins, which luckily is not my job to do, but uh, we we are excited to to really bring my card post, which really is is sort of a different type of marketplace. We're
Yep.
really excited about it to have not only ability to kind of list items just for essentially buy now, but also to be able to, and we have inventory to be able to trade inventory. Right? I think that's going to open up a whole different component for Mascot, and I think for my card post it could be a really natural tie-in to get additional inventory on the platform.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about Mascot before we get into what your role is and what your other roles have been and just kind of like collecting the space since we're on the topic.
Yeah, you got it. So Mascot is a fairly new product. We officially rolled it out around the national time. Mascot essentially does two things and two things really well. It is the leading inventory management solution specifically designed for collectibles, and it is the fastest way to list items for sale across multiple marketplaces simultaneously. On the inventory management side, we've partnered with most, if not all, of the major grading companies: PSA, SGC, Beckett, CGC, and Tag. So we have essentially any data that is stored by those grading companies will automatically be recognized and pulled in with Mascot, which makes sort of keeping track of all your inventory and then ultimately listing your inventory for sale a very seamless experience. And then on the omni-channel, multi-sales channel approach, essentially you can create one listing on Mascot and broadcast it out to various marketplaces simultaneously. You could, put different prices on different marketplaces all in one click of the button. If it sells on one marketplace, our technology will automatically remove the listings from all the other platforms, so essentially eliminating any risk of double sales. And it's been a really exciting journey. We've been getting a lot of signups, a lot of inventory at the door, and we're starting to see real transactional volume flow through. And the feedback I keep hearing is essentially what used to take days or hours for people to do, now they can do in seconds or minutes with Mascot. And I think time obviously is a very precious commodity for everyone, and tools that really kind of streamline and make the industry more efficient, I think, are incredibly important. And I think Mascot's gonna be, a really big part of that.
Wow, that's incredible actually. So you're actually able to so let me ask something really quickly actually before we dive into that. So if I were to grade cards with PSA, do you see yourself or do you see Mascot eventually getting to the point where you can port that PSA membership, like, and that would directly translate to your profile, and like once those cards are graded, all of a sudden they would essentially show up in your inventory and you'd be able to list almost instantly, especially with the scans. At least in that case, that's what I'm referring to.
It's like you're in our product roadmap meetings here. So, but yeah, so you can do that right now, right? So
Really?
when you get the certs back from the grading company, essentially you can just copy and paste all the certs, put it into Mascot,
For
and boom,
sure.
we'll instantly read that. We
Yeah.
are looking for ways to kind of even further integrate it.
Yeah.
Obviously you can export a spreadsheet full of all of your inventory on the PSA set registry, and boom, instantly upload that to Mascot. Or discussions with a bunch of different grading companies around even integrating Mascot further. I think for the most part, grading companies really want to remain agnostic as to where items are ultimately going for sale. I think
Yeah.
they recognize that something like 40 to 60% of graded inventory actually hits some secondary market within a matter of a couple months.
Yeah.
They're all really kind of laser focused on, hey, look, if we look at secondary market velocity and secondary market essentially respect, of the grading company, that really is sort of like a lead gen driver for people continuing to submit items to the grading company. So I think a lot of grading companies are focused on secondary market volume and secondary market efficiency. And Mascot really gives people the ability to, list items across multiple platforms in a very Switzerland kind of agnostic type way, really quickly and efficiently.
I find it fascinating that based on, if your inventory sells on one platform, it's actually able to just remove it from your profile altogether. I feel like that definitely eliminates a lot of issues when, listing on multiple platforms. Does Mascot include places like Facebook Marketplace?
We have a Shopify integration. So through Shopify, you are able to put it on Facebook Marketplace, Instagram. I'd never want to call Twitter X, but
I
Twitter
just
as
can't
well.
I can't do it yet.
Yeah, me neither. Amazon is another Bible channel. We have eBay integrated. We have MySlabs integrated. We have 5 or 6 other marketplaces that we're in the process of integrating, including my card post, which obviously we're very excited about. So, our vision is to have as many integrations as possible with as many secondary market channels, and really to kind of make Mascot essentially a central operating system, a central hub where you can kind of run your business, run your collection, run whatever type of participant you are, just kind of running through Mascot. I think it'll save people a lot of time and probably a lot of money also.
And so when you say upload cert numbers, would it auto populate the photos from those cert numbers, or you would have to manually include photos as well?
It really depends on which grading company it is. Obviously, some grading companies store high res, almost stock images of the item.
Yep.
If the images are stored by the grading company, it'll automatically pull into Mascot.
Really?
Yeah, some grading companies like Beckett, I
Yeah,
wish I
no, I
wish they
know.
did. For
I
instance,
know.
they do not store images.
I
So
know.
if you upload a Beckett cert, you'll get everything else besides the actual image. I think more and more grading companies will store images and have them. So obviously, this for newer or more modern stuff or things that are recently graded, we will have high res images, which obviously saves people time in scanning, and
Of course.
obviously, as we know across all secondary market channels, the quality of the image is a real factor in whether or
Yep.
not the item gets sold and how desirable it appears. And so we think we can really help almost optimize people's listings across secondary channels.
So is this strictly for authenticated items at present moment in time?
No, it's actually not. So we can do a raw items as well. The easiest way to do it for raw is if you have your items ready in a spreadsheet, just drag and drop that spreadsheet on over, and everything in your spreadsheet will essentially, kind of take onto Mascot. Or, if you want to do it sort of on a one-off basis, you can enter each one manually and just enter in all the details there. But yeah,
Okay.
it's for raw and graded.
Excellent. That's awesome. So this is your second go at a CEO's position in the collectible space, correct? Am I wrong? Is there a third one?
You are correct.
Fantastic. And so the first one was collectible. Collectible was recently purchased, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, correct.
Talk to me about that process. Talk to me about, did the first position at collectible, did it better prepare you for Mascot? What did you learn? I mean, I guess I just asked you like 3 questions there, but pick one of them and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it was a wild ride at Collectible. We look, we had a lot of success. I mean, we did over $55 million of securitized collectible transactions. We were involved in a lot of record-breaking sales. We've created live events in the Mint Collective.
Yep.
We have a lot of partnerships with eBay and various other companies. We had to get SEC regulated. I mean, there was a lot of success there, and we did a lot. Obviously, I think unfortunately fractional ownership really had a real moment in the sun when times were good in the market, when market was strong and prices were rising, and then unfortunately when the market started to weaken, demand really for fractional ownership unfortunately kind of came to a grounding halt. And by the way, it's not just fractional ownership too. I mean, the business model of fractional ownership really was you take really high value assets, 6 7 figure assets, and essentially IPO them, almost like a company would IPO, here in New York or in the Toronto Stock Exchange. And there's a lot of regulatory hurdles you have to do to kind of get items, kind of through the market. Unfortunately, a lot of the items that we did put out were unfortunately just given the timing of our launch, we're close to peak market, and when prices started to come down, it led to a little bit of a negative experience for some people. That's not just kind of fractionalized collectibles. If you look across the public market space, which is kind of what we're trying to do, right? Create
Hmm.
almost like a bank, like an investment bank for collectibles. When you look
Yeah.
across the public markets, there's crazy data, which is essentially that almost 80% of public market IPOs starting just about the same time collectible did. 80% of real company IPOs were down close to 50% or more over the same time period. So this wasn't just a fractional collectible story. This really was sort of a macro story, and I think collectible and all the other fractional companies really got kind of swept up into that.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you could go back and, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently, or would you have done anything differently?
I mean, I really hate to blame it all on macro because there are obviously things I think
No, that's
collectible
fine. Yeah.
late, but I guess the only thing if we had the hindsight back then to not put out so many modern cards, for instance, for IPO, right? Or if
Yeah.
we had hindsight that the market was close to topping, whether or not forever or just on a short-term basis, I think we would have been a little bit more conservative in both the volume of IPOs, but also the types of stuff that we put out.
But
If
the
you
market wanted modern at the time, though, right? Like,
market wanted modern, I mean, look, anything we put out that was modern, people were gobbling up, at the prices that were indicated. When you look across just the various types of items collectible did, we did a whole range of stuff. We did everything from game worn memorabilia to tickets and photography and modern and vintage, you name it, we did it. By and large, vintage stuff actually, did well and continues to do well. Unfortunately, we were overweight modern, which seemed to be what really people wanted. But
yeah,
if you just bought shares in Mantle and Ruth and stuff like that, you've actually done quite well. And Chamberlain was, almost any Will Chamberlain piece we had, was exited for I think over 40-50% return. So it really was just, sort of almost like an asset allocation issue where we
yeah.
just a lot of modern stuff, but that's seemingly what the market wanted at that time. And I think a lot of people, including ourselves, were sort of proven at least in the short term to be sort of incorrect about that one.
I mean, and I guess that's just kind of what happens when you have startups, when you have a vision on something, and again, like you were kind of filling a market need at that time, and I mean, the response, the market doesn't always want that for a prolonged period of time, right? I guess that's what's kind of difficult, especially in a space where you're fighting with for so much attention, right? Like I guess everywhere now, social media, you're constantly fighting for attention. And so kind of trying to keep that attention is quite difficult, especially when it comes to, I mean, a card, or I mean, name me one card that it people are still somewhat like, this is great. I mean, look at Luca. Luca was in 2021, that was the god's son, directly related. And I mean, even his stuff is cool. So it's very, very interesting to kind of see from a hindsight perspective.
Yeah, look, man, I think that's right. I mean, yeah, it wasn't just fractional, it wasn't just public market IPOs. I mean, I think anyone who bought cards probably in late 2020, 21, 20, probably early 22, probably have a fairly similar experience in their own PC or if they're dealing or putting things on auction. I mean, the high end, specifically on the modern side, high end has come down a great deal, and that's exactly what fractional saw.
That's why you buy hockey.
We did always joke hockey seemed to be one of the categories that even modern seems to really have kind of held up better than the rest, I should say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're pretty stable over here. Talk to me. So this is the second time you're in the space in a role like this. Why the collectible space? Does it have a special place in your heart?
Yeah, I mean, I do love this space. It's funny. I was a collector growing up. I really got into the hobby because my dad. My dad's a big collector, and still is a big collector. And I remember growing up, he would always go to the national. I think he's been to 20, 28, 29 nationals. He
What?
go every summer with 3 or 4 of his closest friends who are all hobbyists. And I didn't really know what the national meant when I was a kid, but I just remember every year around the end of July, my dad would go away with 3 or 4 guys who I never met to Chicago or to Cincinnati or to excuse me, to Cleveland. Like he
Yeah.
would always go to this show, and I didn't really know what it meant, but it was really his passion for it really kind of kept me involved. I went to college and kind of lost interest a little bit in the hobby, and I worked in finance for a bit. I had another entrepreneur experience prior to coming to collectibles industry where I actually founded a minor league football league and we sold that to Fox Sports, and that actually became the USFL. So people who are into football and like the USFL, that was actually the operating model for that was something that we created, and we actually purchased the IP of the USFL out of bankruptcy and kind of packaged it together, sold to Fox Sports. And so sort of after that experience, I said, I was talking to my dad, and he's like, "Look, you clearly like being an entrepreneur. You clearly like, that more than you like kind of analyzing other businesses. You should take a look at the hobby." And that's actually kind of where I dove in, started making relationships, and just tried to figure out all my place in it. And I had a finance background, the capital markets background, and I heard about this thing called fractional ownership, and I had a finance background, so kind of marrying collectibles and finance made sort of a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience, and allowed me to make a lot of relationships and connections and understand the industry really well. And when kind of I was presented with a couple of other opportunities, this opportunity to me felt like something that was incredibly scalable, and everyone has a need for it. Everyone has a need for an inventory management tool. Everyone has inventory. Everyone's a lot of it. This obviously is a unique industry where everything's essentially its own unique SKU, its own
Yeah.
unique item, and you have to manage it. And we look at how many people are selling on eBay and other secondary market channels. And eBay has 17 million unique sellers on eBay, right? So people need tools that help automate, help make more efficient, help speed up that journey. And then obviously, when you look across the marketplace space, there's a lot of marketplaces, right? And so how do you keep track of them all? How do you kind of aggregate them all? There's new marketplaces that are forming by the day, but some huge companies, DraftKings, TikTok, right?
Yeah.
These are marketplaces that have barely really kind of scratched the surface within our industry that will only continue to get more and more prevalent. So we need a tool like Mascot. We need something that can really kind of sit at the center of it all and allow people to distribute inventory and to manage their inventory in really creative and efficient ways.
Do shipping labels get produced like through Mascot as well, or?
Not yet. We actually have we negotiated a deal with the shipping companies, so we can and probably will at some point allow people to kind of print shipping labels, and likely given kind of the terms we've negotiated, are likely cheaper for them to use Mascots versus kind of using their own. We haven't integrated that yet. As of right now, I think most marketplaces produce a label if you sell it on a secondary market channel. Obviously,
Yeah.
if you privately, you're kind of using your own terms. So it is something that we're probably going to build into the platform shortly.
See that? My brain just like
There you go. There you go. You got it. You're
Yeah,
getting
that's fantastic. What who has been the I mean, I'm sure you've met a lot of people in the space over the course of the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Who has been the person that you can lean on the most in the space?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I guess my answer would be sort of dependent based on kind of what
Like what
advice
you what you need?
I need. But I will say there's I wound up joining Mascot as a result of a very close relationship with one of the founders here, and they're incredible entrepreneurs who essentially launched Mascot, and they hired me to run it. But so it was really through a relationship there with someone who I consider to be a very close mentor, and a huge hobbyist who's involved in some massive transactions, who really kind of showed me the vision of what Mascot could be. They actually had a similar business in a different industry, and it was massively successful. And they said, "Hey, there's no reason why this can't work in our industry as well." So I can go on and on. There's a lot of people who I've met, and a lot of people who I consider very close friends and confidants. It just probably depends on what type of advice I'm looking for.
That's awesome. So we just came back from the National a few months back. You were present at the National?
I was there. I
Awesome.
was there. We were there. It was really the first launch of Mascot. We had a booth in the corporate section, all
Fantastic.
the way by the fudge station. So if you wanted fudge, you had to go all the way to the back corner of the corporate section. We happened to be right next to the fudge, which actually did bring a lot of foot traffic.
I was like, that was probably there deliberately, that was it's all play. Talk to me about your experience at the National, and over the course of the last few years, especially it being such a prominent place for your father. Has he seen you at the National?
Yeah, every year this was my third National. He's been at all three. It's really fun. He goes with his own buddies. I'm usually in some working capacity, but he stops by my booth. I make sure to get kind of deck him out in all merchandise. So he's a little bit of a walking billboard for us.
That's funny.
It's cool. Honestly, it's one of the things that I like most about this industry. I'm speaking from personal
Of course.
experience. It's just like it really has deepened my ties with my father and my dad, who loves the space. And I think his love has almost become my love, and it's definitely special to kind of have that bond there. For the national, it's just crazy how much it continues to grow every year. Even I remember when I went, the first time the market was really strong, second time the market was really strong, third time this year the market was a little soft, and I was very curious to see how that was going to impact things. And obviously when you're talking about record attendance and needing all that floor space and corporates and showing up in unprecedented size, but I think that gives people a lot of confidence for the future of this industry. I think the national will only get better, only get more creative. Obviously next year in Cleveland, a little bit of a different kind of space layout,
Layout, yeah.
a little bit smaller. I think that's gonna be interesting. But and then also just the proliferation of other shows that are coming. We founded a show at Collectible with IMG. The Mid Collective was really a brainchild of collectibles, and then we partnered up with IMG to really bring that to the market. And now, through the success of the Mid Collective, Fanatics and IMG are partnering up to kind of create a whole live event series. So, it's amazing to see how many new card shows and hobby shows are coming. I was just at Burbank, right? That's a fairly new show, but
Yep.
I think they've done 2 or 3 of them. That was
I think
huge.
that was his third.
Third, yeah.
Yeah.
So just the amount of kind of creativity and ingenuity, and the amount of people who are trying to advance the industry forward, it gives me a lot of confidence in spite of sort of a down market when pricing activity has really remained strong. And I think that's a sign of a really good, healthy, strong market.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. When we stop talking so much about prices being up or down, if we look at the actual number of participants, and especially, in the case of these shows, the national, for instance, they're saying record numbers. We here in Toronto, we have the Toronto Expo, and we have the pleasure of having one every 6 months, and it seems like every 6 months it's a new attendance record. And I have people personally reach out to me who there's just always something new that they're adding. I mean, this one upcoming, we've got like Mike Tyson and Ric Flair, which are arguably two of the biggest names that we've ever had at a national or at an expo. And I've had people personally reach out to me who have nothing to do with like the sports cards and the sports collectible space, and they're like, dude, like, can you get me tickets for the expo? Like, I want to meet Ric Flair. I want to meet Mike Tyson. So I just think, I mean, to your point, I think the ability for the space to integrate new members who are interested at some capacity, whether that's through Magic the Gathering or through Yu-Gi-Oh or through boxing, and there's just, if it's not a card set, there's like an autograph signee or there's a live event. There's just so many different instances where we're pulling people in, and I think as the space, once you're here, is fairly enjoyable.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. It will be interesting to see, as obviously Fanatics is coming to this industry in a very big way. They're obviously here already, but in the live events, their relationships with athletes and leagues and teams, I think that could be a really interesting driver. Obviously, people, you see at the national, right, with the autograph pavilion, how many people line up just to meet these Hall of Famers or even active athletes. I mean, people want some degree of involvement with sports. I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people love sports, and it's a real big draw forward. And when you think about the collectibles market, it's really just a derivative of sports, right? How can the average person really kind of get involved with sports? And I think collectibles are a really cool way to do that. So I'm excited about the space. I've said it a bunch of times elsewhere publicly, but when you just look at how many people identify as a collector versus how many people there are who like sports, it's a very, very, very small percentage. And so everyone keeps saying, well, how do we 10x the hobby? Well, the truth is, it wouldn't take that much when you just kind of think about the demographics of it. There's something like 1 million to 2 million collectors who identify 1 million to 2 million people identify as a collector out of, a base of 4 to 500 million, people who participate in fantasy sports and sports gambling, which is also another derivative way to really kind of get involved with sports. So that gap to me feels very closable. I don't think it might not have the same mainstream popularity as gambling and fantasy, just because of how how instantaneous that is.
Yeah.
Collectibles are not that, but I think getting the number up to 10 million, 20 million to me feels achievable, certainly.
How does that get achieved in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean that to me is the big question, right? I mean, I do think kind of having, well, I think it all starts with product, right? All starts with product, and then from product really becomes how do you distribute that product in really creative ways, right? How do you raise awareness, for the industry? Obviously, I think Fanatics having these relationships with the teams and leagues, I think could be a fairly massive driver for it. Now, athletes for the first time, are
Yeah,
really incentivized to promote the industry. You're seeing things like what Tops is doing, right? With the rookie game worn patches, and there was an announcement which seemed almost quiet over the last couple of days about even NFL rookies wearing a patch. People are speculating that those NFL patches, rookie patches, will be essentially inserted into football trading product. And I think things like that are really interesting. You're starting to see kind of a crossover between even a deal SGC announced, which is they're doing a sponsorship partnership deal with the Dolphins,
yeah.
right? Kind of intertwining almost in the same way that fantasy sports and sports gambling have, right? Intertwining collectibles, sports collectibles, with where the average sports fan is, has proven to be a recipe for success. It wasn't long ago when all these sports networks, ESPN being a prominent one, was saying we won't touch gambling in any
Gambling.
capacity.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, pretty much every show on ESPN has gambling lines at the bottom of it. I think ESPN even just partnered up with a sports book, right? So now they're going to be offering their own gambling. So you're seeing sort of the crossover of other categories, and kind of meeting the sports consumer, sports fan where they are. And I think if we follow a similar playbook with collectibles, I don't think it'll take too long.
I mean, I couldn't agree with more. You even see like free parlays sometimes on at the end of like a gambling segment on like however short it might be on during a broadcast, but there's like here's my parlay of the week or parlay of the weekend, and I'm like I just remember distinctly a few years back where uh gambling was like bastardized on some of these programs, right? Talk to
Yeah,
me. Go for it. Go.
no, no, you're right. Yeah, it was completely bastardized, and now it's completely widely accepted, and they're seeing that brings eyeballs and attention, and it's a way for people to not just consume sports but to participate in sports. And I think this is another avenue where people can do that.
I couldn't agree more. How do you, if you had to, uh, there was a genie, with where is Mascot in the next 3 years?
Tough question. Look, I mean, I think when people get on the platform and they start using it, they will see that it makes their lives a lot easier. It makes running their businesses a lot easier. It makes keeping track of inventory a lot easier. It makes selling inventory a lot easier. And I think there's so many applications for just about every type of market participant, including the marketplaces, including the grading companies. And I think you're going to see Mascot integrated in very creative ways. Our hope is that Mascot becomes essentially what similar products in other industries have become, which is the operating hub. And it feels a little cliche to say that. I know other companies kind of use a similar tagline, but the people who are using Mascot, we hear from them every day that holy crap, this has made my life so much easier, and I can't even remember kind of hobbying without Mascot. So I think just widespread sort of widespread distribution, adoption in very creative ways, everything integrated into one, and essentially people just running their hobby experience, their business through Mascot, and Mascot really being sort of embedded into a lot of companies that have widespread sort of distribution eyeballs already to help streamline their experiences. We're talking about grading companies, marketplaces, right? I mean, those are the types of areas where obviously a lot of inventory and concentration of inventory flow through on a daily basis. And I think Mascot has a lot of applications for things like that.
What are some of the challenges you're experiencing right now with Mascot?
It's technology, and it's new, and this industry doesn't always take well or kind of spend the time to understand new technologies and new ways of doing things. People, even if their processes are not always efficient or the way they want them to be, they have a process already, and
Yeah.
kind of the switching costs of doing something new, just in terms of getting it set up and understanding how it works, sometimes are high. From our experience, when we put the product in front of people and they start using it, they love it, right? But oftentimes getting people to adopt anything new, especially when it's technology in an industry that isn't always the most kind of technologically savvy or willing to adopt new technologies, I would say just that's the biggest challenge. Or we're very confident in the product and know that people who are using it love it, and it's really just a matter of kind of continuing to get the word out, continuing to integrate Mascot in creative ways, putting it in front of the right people, You know, I do expect that once people really try it, they're going to love it.
Is it strictly a website now? Do you have an app? Is there an app in the future? Is there?
So we started out strictly as a desktop website. Actually, over last week, we've rolled out a really good, actually, I wouldn't say better, a really good kind of a website, a mobile website. So if you go to the website on mobile, you've got the same functionality. We do not have a mobile app yet. We are building one out.
Okay.
Always hate to put specific timelines around
No,
new
no.
products and a new tip, but I would say by the end of this year, I would anticipate having a mobile app ready. But again, you know, it's I think everyone's very conditioned to kind of look for apps on their phone. If you just go on your phone, type in a website, with mascot.com, and you can use it that way. And it has essentially all the same functionality that our mobile app will have in a couple months.
Yeah, I just think a lot of people do business on the go these days, and it just like having a website versus an app sometimes is the difference maker. And I'm not saying that there's, any reason not to check out Mascot. For everything from what I've heard from others and what I've heard from you has been all great stuff. But in terms of like having that mainstream integration, having people, go one step less in order to acquire it, as ironic as that sounds, like it's the same shit. You still have to go to a website versus an app store. It's like, well, for some reason, the app store just makes it so much more instantaneous, and you can connect it directly into your Google. There's no, like, you don't have to autofill anything, right? So I think that's definitely going to help as well. In terms of like, is there anywhere that people can go for like a tutorial on how to use Mascot?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we're building all those out. We've done so many deployments and enhancements to the product. We've really been building this. I mean, it feels like every day,
Yeah.
we're releasing new features. So we haven't really done that because so many things are changing and have been updated. We are in the process of doing a bunch of tutorials now, which will really educate people on how to use the product. I do suspect that helps. And yeah, look, to your point, even though the mobile web experience will be pretty much the same
The
thing as the
same.
mobile app experience,
Yeah.
people are very conditioned to just want to go to their app store and download an app. And we fully recognize that, we're aware of it, and that's really why we're building the app. Even though, again, pretty much the
It's the
same
same
experience.
thing. Same thing. I know. I don't know what it is. I mean, it happens to me too, where I'm like, I have to deliberately keep a tab open on my phone, if I'm using like a website, and just so I don't forget. But the apps are just all kind of there. It's very easy to click into. I think it's just a visual thing for me personally.
For sure, agreed,
Yeah. Now, but that
agreed.
being said, if you have a spreadsheet, I mean, it's kind of hard to do that through a phone. So if we're talking like a scalable, like a bit like a larger scale business, I mean, they would probably have no problem using Mascot on a desktop as it was designed.
Yeah, if you sort of segment our user base, and we have all different types of users, yeah, I would like the enterprise type clients, the people who are running their hobby related businesses who sit in front of a computer all day long, are very comfortable with the desktop product. If you're a collector who's at a show or you're on the go, I think the consumers, the collectors are more interested in the mobile app experience. And
Yeah,
as a result of how many use cases we have and how many different types of people who are using it, we want to make sure that we'll have a good experience no matter what. You're right. If you're someone who's loading in a lot of inventory, chances are they'll probably do that on their computer.
for
But if
sure.
you're at a show and you want to just you buy something, you want to list it quickly, and or you have something listed on eBay and MySlabs and my card post and other sites, but you happen to sell it at a show, you want to make sure you quickly sort of take it off all the secondary market channels. So we want to make
Yeah.
sure that we have a really good mobile app version for people who are on the go, not running kind of enterprise businesses directly from their computers.
Yeah. I mean, the use cases for this app or this website, we're gonna call it a website so people don't get excited about the app just yet. But the for this for Mascot, I mean, there's so many use cases, right? Like just as you mentioned, imagine making a deal on the go and being able to swiftly pull that off of every marketplace, and you don't have to worry about going individually. I mean, because that actually happened to me a few days ago where no one bought it, but I made sure that, the first thing I do every time I sell something, um, is pull it off every marketplace, right? And that probably doesn't take a crazy amount of time, but occasionally you miss it, and that's what you want to prevent from happening. So I definitely see there being use cases on the go. I see there being use cases at home. I see there being use cases for the everyday collector, as well as you mentioned, companies in the space. Ezra, if you wanted everyone to know one thing about Mascot, like the last thing, your elevator pitch on Mascot. What is it? And then, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So it's two things. It is a really great inventory management solution, so you can keep track of your entire inventory, your entire collection, all in one centralized place. It'll make keeping track of inventory so much easier. Just trust me on that. Try it out. And then two, if you are selling across multiple secondary market channels, or even if you just sell on eBay, for instance, this is the easiest and fastest way to get listings up on those secondary market platforms. If you're doing multi sales channel selling already, this will save you a lot of time. Just create one listing on Mascot, blast it out to as many marketplaces as you can. And thirdly, the product is free. So it is a free product. There's no subscription. There's no transaction fees. We make our money from various commercial vendors. So for businesses and for individual hobbyists and collectors, the product is completely free, and so it's a really good value.
Sounds like it. Ezra, if someone wanted to contact you about potentially adding Mascot to their marketplace, or maybe integrating it into their business, and the tutorials aren't live yet, but they're very interested in using, where can they contact you, and where can they find out more about Mascot?
Yeah, if you want to reach out to me directly, it's Ezra at withmascot.com. So EZRA at withmascot.com. You could also reach out to our support team, who's always very responsive. Support at withmascot. On every social media platform, we're at withmascot, so it makes it easy to find us at withmascot across all socials.
Amazing. Ezra, thanks for joining me today. Team, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode featuring Cardboard Coach and Ezra. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We are out of here.